I seen this on Harbor Freight's new tool page the other day, and I just had to go out and get this because at the price, if this thing works, this is going to be a game changer for a lot of small shops. Now, I've been doing dust collection for years, and I don't spend the money on those $1,000 Festools. Now, Matt just did a comparison on this exact dust extractor to the Festool. I'll link it down below. And he did a real good job on comparing this to the Festool. However, for me, there are a lot of things that is really important about this that Matt did not touch on and just makes it a great. Now, I agreed with pretty much everything he said, but there's a couple of things I want to point out on this. I'm going to real quickly just point out a lot of the features. For the hose here, it does have a locking hose so that it doesn't, get pulled out if you drag this machine around by it. You have your port right here that you can plug your tool in, and when you turn on your tool, it automatically activates. You put it on the cord, you got it off and you have it on, and then this is your power setting. This is for the filters, so it oscillates the two different filters so that it keeps your filters nice and clean, which is what we're really going to get into, because that is, to me, the most important thing is keeping those filters clean and being able to actually use the machine. As you can see, this one has been well used. Something a lot of people might not realize is you can actually buy HEPA filters for the rigid vacuums, and they are still HEPA certified, so they're going to filter out the same particles. But why would you pay double for the Hercules over a setup like this? For several years, I have used this particular setup for my sanding table, and this vacuum has only been hooked to my sander, which is going to get you the smallest particles. And if you take it off, let's see, I haven't opened this up yet, but I don't even have the canister filter in it. What I do have is the paper filter, and the reason why a shop vac doesn't work good as a dust extractor is because of the filter. Usually the canister filter is going to get clogged. What makes a good filtration system is you have to have airflow. If your airflow gets blocked, you can still have pressure, but you're not going to get your dust collection. And with this type of filter, these little pleats, especially if you're doing something like concrete grinding or sheetrock work, these little filters will get clogged up extremely quick. And I'm talking before you're even a quarter of the way full of a small 5-gallon vacuum, and then it no longer will suck any of the dust out of the air. And that's why I run a bag in my filter, because the bag, it actually sucks all the way around. And as you can see, this thing is about halfway full, and this is just like baby powder. I mean, this is the finest dust you could actually imagine. And this is the worst stuff that's going to get into your lungs. This is the worst stuff around the shop. And this right here will clog one of those little filters on a regular shop vac within minutes and make it ineffective, which is what the Hercules is going to prevent. And as you can see on my rigid one here, the green canister is the HEPA rated filter. And then you have the bag. And again, this bag here is about half full. And as you see, we don't have any dust hardly inside of either one of the containers. And there's almost no dust in this filter, which means that we're still going to get good airflow. And that's just because everything's being caught within the bag. So if I've got all these different types of dust collection, why did I go spend the money on getting this Hercules, and what is the difference? Well, one, the price isn't that much more expensive, because even though this looks like a small vacuum, if you look down on here, this is a 5.5 horsepower. And that's what you really want to look at as far as the strength. You can get these big, huge shop vacs that have real small motors on them, and they're dirt cheap. But people don't realize that you're not going to get that suction power. This one here, I think it's a 6 horsepower. But this is a 6.5 horsepower. So right off the bat, we've got more powerful suction. Now, Drew over at Woodworks had did a comparison about a year ago with his rigid compared to Festool, and he used the air quality monitor, and everybody was amazed that the rigid hung in with the festool. But HEPA is HEPA. If a vacuum has a HEPA filter rating, that is a national standard, and it has to filter out to the HEPA filter standard. So it doesn't matter if it's a festool or a rigid or whatever. If it's a HEPA rated, it's going to filter the same size particles. I got this dust extractor to save me money. And the way it's going to save me money is if you look, this is the replacement filters. It takes 2 of these, but it comes with 2 of them in the box, so you don't need to buy any extras. But this is HEPA certified. So these filters here have the HEPA rating. So that means that as long as you're using a HEPA certified filter, you're going to get HEPA quality air coming through as long as these don't get clogged up. Now, here's where we're getting into the difference. A lot of people may not understand that these vacuums are not rated to be ran as what they call a duty cycle, for long periods of time. Whereas a dust extractor, the motors are different so that it doesn't overheat the motor. Later on in one of Drew's videos, he had mentioned how when he was running his rigid vac on his CNC, that after running for a little while, it starts losing suction. That's because the motor starts overheating and it loses efficiency and will shorten the life of the motor and cause it to, 1, not work right, or 2, just burn up and no longer work at all. Whereas a dust extractor is made with a different type of motor so that it can run for hours at a time without burning up. All right, so let's take a look here. So I've plugged in the Hercules back here in the back of my shop. Now, it is 44 foot from the back of my shop to the front. I've got the Hercules sitting right here, and I've got that hose stretched all the way out there. And now, depending on if you are using any of the attachments, or say like at my sander I keep here by my table, it's got a short hose on it. I mean, I could seriously be able to plug this machine in and be able to work 40 foot away from my outlet without having to have an extension cord. And another thing that they didn't mention is this cord is a heavy cord. And the reason that's so good is because the power not only is going to power the vacuum, but it's also powering your tools. So you do not want to have a weak power source that's going to get overloaded when you put in a high demand tool. If we're going to be standing for long periods of time or doing other work, how much noise are these vacuums? And so for a baseline, let's see what we got here. All right, so it looked like the little one was about 82. Well, that was kind of surprising that the bigger vacuum actually was quieter than the smaller one. But let's see what this one has. I'm going to turn it on to just regular turn it on. Every 6 decimals, I think, is like twice as loud. So this one is extremely quiet compared to our small one, and is even almost half as quiet running as our rigid one. However, I did cheat on that. And what I want to show you is I had this turned down on low. A lot of the things that can adjust your suction is just a hole that opens up so that it reduces and has some air that flows around. Well, this one has I have to assume it's going to be a DC motor instead of an AC motor. DC motors are a lot more energy efficient and they run at variable speed. And so watch this as I turn the volume up. As you can hear, this is not opening up a passage for the air to bleed around. This is speeding up and lowering the speed. Unless you've actually used these a whole lot, you probably don't realize that this is a huge feature, but there's 2 exhaust ports. They have louvers that are faced up, and there's a diffuser behind it. And what that does is that keeps that big jet of air coming out. If you're using like a shop vac and it has that big jet of air coming out, if there's already been some work or something going on in the area and there's dust on the floor, when you turn the thing on, it will pick up all that off the floor and blow it up in the air and cause a big dust pile. This thing here with the louvers going up and the way it is directed, it does not, I have not seen any dust get stirred up when I turn this machine on. As you can see, this isn't just something that I bought and pulled out of the box. I wanted to test this out and make sure that it was worth the upgrade, because for about $150, you can get you a good 6 horsepower rigid vacuum, and then you can buy the HEPA filters, but you have to use bags. And those bags are anywhere from $5 to $7 per bag. And, if I'm doing a lot of work here, and this is just sanding, I'm replacing those bags about once a month. Now that's going to depend on how much you do. But let's take a look at this here. So I have not cleaned these filters yet. And now there's dust in here because I did not put the bag in here. It came with the bag. And my other bags that I have up there will actually fit on it. But let me get you in here close. All right, you can see the pleats on both of these filters. Now there's dust all the way down inside, but the majority of the pleats here, we have over 50% or more that there is no dust on, which means that I'm still going to get good airflow, which I am, even though I have been using this for quite a while. Now, if I had been like using this hook to a table saw or something, I would have had big chunks. But as you see, this here is mostly that fine, baby powder, where I've done a lot of sanding with this hooked up. It's this real fine little powder. And without the bag, this thing has been collecting all this fine powder, which with any other vacuum that I have used, if I did not have a bag in here, these cartridge filters would have been clogged up before I had half this amount and would have been completely unusable. So this has to be the most sophisticated filter cleaning system, better than any of the others. There's some of them that you have like a mechanical thing in there. Well, this thing actually has a sensor in here. And now you can hear the motor revving up and down and pulsating. And what it is doing is it's swapping from one filter to the other. And when it senses that the filters are getting clogged, it starts pulsating, and I can feel it on my hand just pulsating, and you can hear that motor pulsating. And now it swaps back and forth, and it does that every so often. But now as it starts getting the filters clogged up, it detects that, it starts doing it more often. And then here where I have my hand completely blocking the airflow, it's detecting that, and it just goes into a non-stop pulsating mode trying to clean those filters off. And it is just amazing that how much dust that I have, vacuumed up with this thing, as far as, what would have clogged up any of the other canister style type filters. And this thing is still got full suction on it. That is what these things are made for. And this does what it's made for. Just absolutely better than any of the even more expensive machines. Most of the times I wouldn't even really talk much about the accessories. Now this thing comes with all kinds of accessories to do, your car and stuff with, but this is a floor accessory. And now most all vacuums have something that looks similar to this, but this one actually has wheels on it. So when you place it down on the floor, it keeps the proper amount of gap so that it doesn't suck completely down to the floor, and so it rolls real easy. It has brushes, nice stiff brushes here, and then it's also got like a solid rubber where if you were using this to do water, which it can do water, but also if you do have a lot of dust on the floor, that little squeegee kind of runs as long as you push them forward, and it sticks to the floor, and in one pass, you're getting pretty much 100% of everything off the floor. So as far as just a dust, vacuum, this thing works great as just a regular shop vac. Not only is it a dust extractor, which I had kind of planned on just having it set there for a dust extractor, but with these big wheels on it, this thing rolls around the shop effortlessly. And so I find that I do use this for some more than what I had expected. And whenever you take into consideration the 17-foot hose that comes with this, you know, with all the other little things, you know, you can buy a auto start. I've got one down here mounted to the back of my table saw where my old vacuum set that will kick on the dust, you know, collection whenever your tool starts, and will kick it off, you know, about 15, 20 seconds after it goes off. Well, this one's built on. So now this actually, with this big long, you know, I think it's a 24, 25 foot cord, it acts like an extension cord, and then you plug your tool into here. The only thing that I can find, if I wanted to try to find something, if you said I had to find a gripe about this, is these switches. To me, the angle, when you have an arrow, the arrow points to where you are wanting to go. Well, with these, the fat end is your arrow. So if you want to turn this to, you know, our cord, you turn it this way, and then, you know, this is fully on, and then this is low, and this goes around to high. And it seems to me like these switches are backwards, that it should be the narrow end as to where they're pointing to. But really, I mean, is that anything? So, I mean, I think this was $2.99, and just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they had the 15% off any item, which brought it down to $2.60. Now, you can't buy all the accessories, the long hose, long cords, and the filtration system, you know, of any other machine at this price. Now, if we go try to get a shop vac, you know, you get a good quality shop vac, and then you have to have the bags and all that for it, you're going to end up within less than a year spending more for an inferior, you know, system. Now, I don't like spending a lot of money in my shop. I try to find the best value, and at $300 normal price, I believe that that is so close to the price of anything that you could come up with and try to put together that is somewhat close, that would not work half as good as this, that this is a no-brainer. I would say out of all the new tools I've gotten so far this year, that this by far has to blow anything else out of the water, just because of the functionality. And I'm probably forgetting a few things that I found about this, because there are so many little details that they have put into this that you don't even see, that are not on the box. I know I've been a little slow on putting out some videos because I don't like to do just tool reviews. I want to actually start getting to more shop projects. I am redoing my shop. But in the meantime, if you do like this stuff, put a comment down below, and definitely hit that like button if you think it's worth it. And I would love to have you subscribe. And until tomorrow or whenever I see you again, I hope everybody has a wonderful afternoon.